First Contact and Ancient Secrets. The massive research vessel Zenith drifted silently through the outer edges of Sol system, its crystalline hull refracting starlight in mesmerizing patterns. Chief Archaeologist Vextel stood at the observation deck, his 4 eyes fixed on the blue-green planet ahead. Earth, a seemingly unremarkable world that had recently joined the galactic stage. Yet something about this planet and its inhabitants troubled the Federation's greatest minds. Analysis complete, Chief announced his assistant Kryn, her tentacles dancing across the holographic displays. The genetic samples from Earth show anomalies we cannot explain. Vextel's outer eyes narrowed while his inner ones remained fixed on Earth. After 10,000 cycles of Federation exploration and cataloging species across the galaxy, they had never encountered anything like this. The human's genetic structure was impossibly elegant, almost architectural in its design, while every other known species showed signs of evolutionary trial and error. Human DNA appeared deliberately crafted. Send the results to the Council, Vextel ordered. And prepare my shuttle. I need to see the excavation site myself. Hours later, Vextel stood in an ancient chamber deep beneath Earth's surface. Federation archaeologists had discovered it by accident while studying primitive human ruins in East Africa. But there was nothing primitive about this place. The walls were made of an unknown material that absorbed all scanning attempts. Symbols covered every surface, symbols that matched those found in ruins across the galaxy, always in locations dating back to before recorded history. It's impossible, whispered Dr. Sarah Chen, the human archaeologist assigned to work with them. These markings predate our earliest civilizations by hundreds of thousands of years. Perhaps, Vextel replied carefully, your civilization is not as young as we all assumed. Before Dr. Chen could respond, Kryn burst into the chamber, her normally composed demeanor shattered. Chief, the genetic analysis. The Council is in chaos. The humans, their genetic code contains markers we found in every sentient species we've ever studied. It's like we're the template. Dr. Chen finished, her eyes wide with dawning understanding. That's what all this means, isn't it? These aren't records of visitors coming to Earth. They're records of humans going out to the stars. Vextel felt his world shift beneath him. The Federation had always assumed they were guiding humanity into a larger universe. But what if they were wrong? What if humans weren't latecomers to galactic civilization, but its architects? Deep in the chamber, something stirred. Symbols that had been dormant for millennia began to pulse with soft blue light. Dr. Chen approached one of the walls, drawn by an instinct she couldn't explain. As her hand touched the surface, the entire chamber hummed to life. A holographic display materialized in the center of the room, showing star systems, migration patterns, and genetic sequences. But unlike Federation technology, this display responded to Dr. Chen's mere thoughts. The human woman gasped as information flooded her mind, knowledge encoded in her very genes, waiting to be awakened. We didn't evolve on Earth, she whispered. We created it. This was our nursery, our sanctuary, where we could restart if anything went wrong. And something did go wrong, didn't it? Something that made us hide away our true nature, even from ourselves. Vextel watched in awe as more chambers lit up throughout the complex. Similar reports were already coming in from Federation excavations on a dozen worlds. Humanity's fingerprints were everywhere, hiding in plain sight. The Federation's most basic assumptions about galactic history had been wrong. As the implications sank in, Vextel knew the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity wasn't just another young species to be guided and mentored. They were the precursors, the elder race that all others had theorized must have existed but could never find. And now they were awakening to their heritage. The real question was, what would they do with this knowledge? And how would the Federation's many species react to learning that the primitives they'd looked down upon were actually their creators? A signal pulsed from the chamber's central display, racing outward through subspace, Across Earth, similar complexes were awakening. The children of humanity were coming home, and their parents were finally remembering who they were. The greatest revelation in galactic history had begun, and Vextal had a front-row seat to watch it unfold. The archaeological discovery. The news spread through the Federation like a shockwave. Within days of the initial discovery on Earth, archaeological teams across the galaxy began reporting similar findings. On Proxima II, Federation excavators uncovered vast underground complexes identical to those on Earth. The desert world of Kepler 186 yielded ancient terraforming machines that responded only to human DNA. Even in the heart of Federation space, on worlds thought to be the cradle of their own civilizations, researchers found evidence of human presence dating back millions of years. Admiral Jirax of the Federation Science Council stood before a holographic display of these discoveries, his scaled skin reflecting the soft blue light of the projections. "Every piece of evidence points to the same conclusion," he announced to the assembled council. "The humans didn't evolve alongside us. They came before." "Impossible," roared Councillor Mexthar, his massive form rising from his seat. "We've mapped their technological progress. We watched them discover basic spaceflight. How could they be our predecessors?" Dr. Sarah Chen stepped forward, now wearing the ancient interface device they'd discovered in the Earth complex. It wrapped around her temples like a delicate crown, pulsing with the same energy that powered the underground chambers. "Because we chose to forget," she said, her voice carrying the weight of ancestral memory. "The interface is helping me access genetic memories we locked away. We didn't just seed the galaxy with life. We engineered it. Every sentient species in the Federation carries fragments of human DNA, carefully modified and adapted for different environments." The council chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives from 100 worlds argued and debated, their voices blending into a cacophony of denial and disbelief. Admiral Jirax raised his hand for silence. "There's more," he said grimly. "Show them, Dr. Chen." Sarah nodded and interfaced with the chamber systems. The holographic display shifted, showing a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. Thousands of points of light appeared, each representing an ancient human installation. They formed a vast network, connected by channels of energy that still pulsed faintly after millions of years. "This is what we built," she explained. "A network spanning the entire galaxy. The Federation has been using fragments of it without even knowing. Your faster than light travel, your terraforming technologies, even your genetic engineering. They're all based on degraded versions of human technology." Vextal, who had been quietly observing until now, stepped forward. "The question isn't whether this is true. The evidence is overwhelming. The question is why. Why did humanity deliberately regress? Why hide away their true nature on a single planet?" Sarah's interface pulsed as she accessed deeper memories. Her face paled. "There was a war," she whispered, "not against an external enemy, but against ourselves. We had become too powerful, too divided in our vision for the galaxy's future. The conflict threatened to tear reality itself apart." The holographic display shifted again, showing scenes of devastation on a scale beyond comprehension. Entire star systems vanished in reality-warping weapons fire. Planets were engineered into weapons. Space itself buckled under the strain of technologies that defied the laws of physics. "The solution was radical," Sarah continued. "A faction of our ancestors developed a way to lock away our advanced consciousness, to let us start over. They created Earth as a sanctuary, a place where we could evolve again, naturally, freed from the burden of our past. The rest of our people scattered across the galaxy, seeding worlds with new life, creating the ancestors of every species in this room." Admiral Jirax's outer membrane rippled with concern. "And now that knowledge is returning. The genetic locks are failing. Humanity is remembering." "Not failing," Vextal corrected. "Being deliberately unlocked. The chambers we've discovered, they're not just records. They're keys, waiting for humanity to reach the right level of development before awakening. The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. Humanity wasn't just discovering their heritage. They were being reborn as the elder race they once were. The Federation's greatest minds had always theorized that some ancient species must have preceded them all, spreading life throughout the galaxy. None had imagined that species still existed, hidden in plain sight. But as the Council grappled with this revelation, alerts began flashing across their security networks. More chambers were awakening. More humans were connecting to the ancient interface devices, and deep beneath the surface of 100 worlds, machines that had slumbered for millions of years were humming back to life. The galaxy's children were about to meet their parents, and no one, not even humanity itself, was fully prepared for what that meant. The Great Awakening. The streets of every major city on Earth had come to a standstill. Millions stood motionless, their eyes unfocused as ancestral memories cascaded through their minds. In New York, Tokyo, Lagos, and Moscow, humans experienced visions of their species' forgotten past, of stars shaped into works of art, of worlds crafted like sculptures, of powers that bordered on the divine. In the Federation's primary diplomatic chamber on Luna, Dr. Sarah Chen watched the feeds with a mixture of awe and trepidation. The interface device at her temples pulsed steadily, helping her process the flood of ancient knowledge. "It's happening faster than we anticipated," she said to Vextal, who stood beside her. "The genetic locks aren't just failing, they're dissolving. Every human on Earth is beginning to remember." Vextal's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "And not just on Earth. We're receiving reports from every human colony. Even those with only distant human ancestry are experiencing the awakening." The displays showed scenes from across the galaxy. On terraformed Mars, dormant machinery buried beneath the red soil burst to life, reshaping the landscape according to plans laid down millions of years ago. Within the ice caves of Europa, ancient data centers activated, broadcasting technical specifications for technologies beyond the Federation's comprehension. "We're receiving a signal," announced Corinne, her tentacles working furiously across the control panel. "It's coming from everywhere. Every human installation we've discovered is activating simultaneously." The signal manifested as a hologram in the center of the chamber, a human figure composed of pure light. Its voice echoed with the weight of ages. "Protocol Omega initiated. Species restoration commencing. The dormancy period is concluded." Sarah stepped forward, drawn by an instinct she didn't fully understand. "We're ready," she said, though she wasn't sure where the words came from. "The safeguards worked. We grew without the burden of our past mistakes." The hologram's face showed the first hint of emotion. Relief. The Great Sleep served its purpose. Humanity developed new perspectives, new wisdom. The restoration can proceed. Around the world, humans began to move again, but differently. Their movements were precise, purposeful, guided by knowledge that had lain dormant in their genes for millions of years. Children instinctively understood advanced physics. Artists began creating works that manipulated reality itself. Scientists found themselves solving problems that had puzzled them for decades. In orbit, Admiral Jirax watched with growing concern as human ships began transforming, ancient systems awakening within their hulls. "The balance of power is shifting," he muttered to his aide. "Everything we thought we knew about the galaxy's hierarchy is changing." The transformation wasn't just technological. Humans were remembering things that changed their fundamental understanding of existence. They remembered shaping the laws of physics, encoding the very fabric of reality with their will. They remembered creating life, seeding worlds, guiding evolution itself. But with the memories came the wisdom their ancestors had hoped they would gain. Sarah felt it clearly, an understanding of why their ancestors had chosen to start over, and a deep appreciation for the perspective their time as a young species had given them. "We're not the same people who nearly destroyed the galaxy," she announced to the Federation Council. "We've learned humility. We've learned the value of cooperation, of viewing the universe with wonder rather than just seeing it as something to be controlled." Vextel noticed something remarkable in the data streams. The awakening. It's not just affecting humans. Every species we created is experiencing changes. The fragments of human DNA within them are resonating with the signal. It was true. Across Federation space, every sentient species was experiencing revelations of their own. They were remembering too. Not the full memories of their creators, but an understanding of their place in the grand design. The genetic bridges between species that humans had carefully engineered were activating, creating a web of shared consciousness that spanned the galaxy. In orbit around Earth, massive structures began to emerge from subspace, ancient stations and shipyards built by the first humans. They had never truly been gone, just shifted slightly out of phase with reality, waiting for their creators to remember them. The hologram spoke again. The next phase begins, but remember why we chose to sleep, why we chose to grow again from simplicity. The power is not what matters, it is the wisdom to use it well. Sarah nodded, feeling the truth of those words in her very genes. Humanity was awakening not as conquerors returning to claim their throne, but as guardians who had learned the true meaning of their power through its absence. The Great Awakening was changing everything, but not in the way anyone had expected. It wasn't an ending, but a beginning, the start of a new chapter in the galaxy's story, where the lines between created and creator began to blur into something entirely new. Power shifts. The Federation's Grand Council chamber, once a symbol of unified galactic governance, had become an arena of chaos. Species that had coexisted peacefully for millennia now found themselves divided by the revelation of their true origins. Some saw humanity's awakening as a chance for advancement, while others viewed it as a threat to their autonomy. Admiral Jirac stood before the fractured council, his scales dulled with exhaustion. The situation is deteriorating. 3 major Federation worlds have already declared their allegiance to Earth. 2 others have mobilized their fleets in defensive positions. Councillor Mexthar, who had been one of the loudest voices against accepting humanity's elder status, rose from his seat. We cannot simply surrender generations of Federation authority to these sleepers who have suddenly remembered their past. How do we know these memories are even real? The chamber's doors opened, and Dr. Sarah Chen entered, but she was changed. The interface device had become part of her, its crystalline structures merging with her biology. Behind her floated Vextel, suspended in a field of energy that Sarah's awakened powers controlled effortlessly. "The memories are real," she said, her voice carrying new authority. "But you misunderstand our intentions. We don't seek to rule. We seek to remember, to restore, and to share." The holographic displays around the chamber activated, showing scenes from across Federation space. On worlds that had accepted humanity's awakening, remarkable transformations were taking place. Ancient human technology was integrating with Federation systems, enhancing them beyond their designers' dreams. Species that had struggled with genetic disabilities found themselves healed as the human DNA within them activated, fulfilling its original purpose. But other scenes showed conflict. The Krax Empire, long a powerful force within the Federation, had sealed its borders and begun amassing its fleet. The Zentari Collective was reportedly attempting to purge the human genetic markers from their population, with disastrous results. "We're receiving a priority signal from the Nexus station," Kryn announced, her tentacles trembling. "The Krax fleet is moving. They're targeting human restoration sites." Sarah closed her eyes, accessing the vast network of ancient human installations. "They don't understand. Those sites aren't just technology. They're part of the galaxy's living systems. Destroying them would..." She never finished her sentence. Across the galaxy, reality itself shuddered as the Krax fleet opened fire on a restoration site. The ancient facilities had defenses, but they were designed to preserve and protect, not to destroy. The Krax weapons, ironically derived from degraded human technology, tore into the ancient structures. The effect was immediate and catastrophic. The damaged site was a linchpin in the galaxy's carefully engineered biosphere. As it failed, nearby systems began to destabilize. Entire worlds felt the impact as the intricate web of life that humanity had woven began to unravel. Stop! Sarah's cry carried across space itself, her awakened powers broadcasting her words to every corner of the Federation. What you're destroying isn't just our heritage, it's the foundation of all life in the galaxy. In orbit around the damaged site, the Krax fleet suddenly found itself frozen in space. Ancient defense systems, dormant for millions of years, had activated, but they didn't destroy the attacking ships. Instead, their crews experienced something unexpected: the awakening of their own human-engineered DNA. The Krax admiral watched in astonishment as his weapons dissolved, transformed by his own crew's awakening powers into life-sustaining energy. The knowledge flowing through their genes showed them the truth. They weren't fighting against their oppressors, but against their own origin, their own chance for evolution. Back in the council chamber, the mood was shifting. The display showed more scenes of transformation, but now they were spontaneous, driven by the crisis. Federation species that had been fighting began to feel their connections, the carefully engineered bonds that humanity had woven between all living things. "This is what we were meant to be," Sarah explained, her voice gentle but firm. "Not rulers and subjects, not creators and created, but parts of a greater whole. The awakening isn't about power, it's about completion." Admiral Jirax, watching the transformation of the galaxy he had sworn to protect, finally understood. The Federation was never meant to be permanent, was it? It was a caretaker, maintaining order until we could all awaken together. Sarah finished. Human, Krax, Centauri, these are just different expressions of the same cosmic DNA. We engineered these differences not to create servants, but to create a symphony. The power shift wasn't what anyone had expected. It wasn't a transfer of authority from one group to another, but a transformation of what power meant. The old structures of Federation governance were becoming obsolete not through force, but through transcendence. The elder race returns. A year had passed since the first chambers awakened on Earth. The galaxy had changed more in that time than in the previous 1,000 years of Federation rule. From the gleaming spires of Earth's newly restored cities to the farthest reaches of known space, a transformation unlike anything in recorded history had taken place. Dr. Sarah Chen stood in the Nexus, a vast space station that had emerged from subspace above Earth. Once merely human, she had become something more, a bridge between what humanity had been and what they were becoming. The interface device was now a part of her biology, its crystalline structures extending through her body like a delicate lattice of starlight. "The final restoration sequences are complete," she announced to the assembled representatives of every spacefaring species. "The network that our ancestors built has been fully reactivated." Vextal, now serving as the liaison between the old Federation and the emerging New Order, moved forward. His body had also transformed, adapted by the awakened human DNA within his species to serve as a living connection point in the vast web of consciousness that now spanned the galaxy. "Show them," he said softly. Sarah nodded and interfaced with the Nexus's systems. The station's central chamber transformed into a vast holographic display of the galaxy, but not as it had ever been seen before. The visible stars and planets were only a fraction of what appeared. Layers of reality that had been hidden for millions of years became visible. Networks of energy connecting distant worlds, vast machines that maintained the fabric of space-time, and billions of lines of connection between all living things. "This is what our ancestors built," Sarah explained. "Not just an empire or a federation, but a living galaxy. Every star, every planet, every species was part of a grand design. Not to control, but to create something greater than ourselves." Admiral Jirax, his form now shimmering with the same energy that filled Sarah, spoke next. "The Krax Empire's attack on the restoration sites taught us all something crucial. We are not separate species fighting for dominance. We are expressions of the same cosmic symphony." The display shifted to show the changes that had swept the galaxy. The rigid boundaries of Federation space had dissolved, replaced by organic flows of energy and consciousness. Species that had once been bitter enemies now worked together, their awakened DNA allowing them to communicate and understand each other on levels previously unimaginable. But the greatest change was in humanity itself. They had awakened not as conquerors or rulers, but as guardians and teachers. The knowledge encoded in their genes wasn't just about power. It was about responsibility, about the delicate balance required to nurture a living galaxy. We remember everything now, Sarah continued. Why our ancestors chose to sleep, why they scattered their knowledge across so many species. They understood that true wisdom couldn't come from power alone. It had to be earned through experience, through growth, through understanding what it meant to be both weak and strong. The holographic display zoomed in on Earth, showing the cradle of humanity transformed. The ancient machines had restored the planet's pristine environment, but they had done more than that. They had created something new, a synthesis of what humanity had been and what they had become during their long sleep. The Federation served its purpose, Vextal observed. It protected the galaxy until we were all ready for this next step. But now it's time for something new. As if in response to his words, the Nexus itself began to transform. The station, already vast, began to unfold like a flower blooming in space. New structures emerged, combining the ancient human technology with innovations developed by every species in the galaxy. This is not an ending, Sarah declared, her voice carrying to every corner of known space. Our ancestors didn't create this galaxy to rule it. They created it so that all of us, human, Krax, Zentari, and every other species, could evolve together. The elder race hasn't returned to reclaim their throne. We've all become the elder race together. The assembled representatives watched in awe as the station completed its transformation. It had become a physical manifestation of what the galaxy itself was becoming, not a collection of separate species and nations, but a single, vast, living entity. The boundaries between creator and created, between human and alien, between consciousness and reality itself, had begun to blur. The next chapter of our story begins now, Sarah said, smiling as she felt the connections between all living things pulse with new energy. Not as rulers and subjects, not as parents and children, but as equals in the greatest adventure our galaxy has ever known. Above Earth, the Nexus pulsed with light, sending waves of energy across the galaxy. The great sleep was over. The elder race had awakened, not just humanity, but all of them together. And the universe would never be the same.